6.5 million. That is how many LinkedIn passwords first spilled onto a Russian forum in 2012, and every one of them was stored the wrong way. Before the dust settled, the real number climbed past 100 million. Here is the part that should unsettle you. The attackers never saw a single password anyone actually typed, and they still recovered them by the million. There is exactly one design choice that would have stopped the whole thing cold, and almost nobody spots it on the exam.
Hey everyone, Isabella here, and that LinkedIn detail is the whole lesson folded into one breach. Those passwords were stored as SHA1 with no salt. A fast algorithm, no per-user randomness, the cheapest possible thing on earth to attack. Security researchers chewed through the bulk of the set in days, purely by guessing.
This is Grace, and I want you thinking like the defender from the first move. A real system never keeps your password. It keeps a hash of your password, a fixed-length scramble engineered to run easily in one direction and to be agonizing to run in reverse. So when a database leaks, the attacker does not walk away with your password. They walk away with a mountain of those scrambles. Cracking is the work of figuring out which original password produced each scramble. And that single sentence is the entire subject of Objective 2.4.
And we are going to do the thing a slide deck simply cannot. We will crack a real hash in front of you, then run the identical attack against a properly defended one and watch it grind to a halt. Same machine, same command, opposite outcome.
Hold on, let me poke the word one way before anyone relaxes. Fenrir here. If a hash is so trivial to compute forward, what actually makes it hard to run backward? Convince me it is not just marketing.
Because backward means searching, not calculating. Forward is one operation. Reverse is trying every possible input until one produces the same output. The math is a bargain one way and a nightmare the other, and that gap is the only thing protecting you.
Think of a paper shredder. Feeding a page in takes a second. Taping the strips back into the original page is the project that eats your whole weekend.
Here is the actual engine, and cracking is really just this one loop. The attacker takes a candidate word, runs it through the hash, and compares the result to a stolen one. Miss, and they simply grab the next candidate and go again, millions of times a second. Sit with what that loop means for the rest of the hour. The attacker is not solving an equation, they are running a guessing race against a clock. Anything that speeds the loop up helps them, and anything that slows it down protects you.
Which reframes every defense we cover today. Each one is just a different way to sabotage that loop. That is the strategic view, and it turns memorization into reasoning.
Fine, that framing actually holds up. It is a race, not a reversal. I will stop pushing on that one.
And the nightmare direction stops being a nightmare the instant guessing gets cheap. Picture a regional hospital that stored every login as plain message digest 5. No salt, fast algorithm, the worst combination you can pick.
Plain message digest 5, no salt, in this decade. Somewhere a team is shipping exactly that right now.
They are, and it is the recurring tragedy. When that database leaked, nobody broke the cryptography. The attacker guessed billions of common passwords, hashed each guess, and matched. The whole staff list fell in under an hour.
So the fix lives in two words you will hear all day, and I want them burned in before we open a terminal. Salt and slow. Salt makes pre-computed tables useless, and a slow function makes each guess expensive.
Both together are the wall. Stay with us, because in a few minutes you will watch that exact wall turn a few seconds of cracking into an estimate north of 20 hours, on the very same hardware, and that gap is the whole episode. Erica, before we go deeper, there is one question that lands under every breach video, and it is the one that makes this whole objective click. Take it for the room.
Gladly. The question people keep asking is this: if the company never stored my password, how did hackers actually steal it? And the honest answer is, they did not steal it. They stole the scramble and outguessed it. And that confusion is the whole reason this objective trips people. Next, we line up the 4 attack shapes the exam loves to blur together. Then we open a real terminal. Stay close, the live crack lands sooner than you expect.
Four attack shapes own this objective, and CompTIA loves to hand you a one-sentence scenario and ask which one it is. Learn to separate them cleanly, and these become free points on exam day. Underneath, all four do the identical thing. They produce candidate passwords and check them. What separates them is the strategy for choosing candidates and how loud each one is. Loud matters enormously because a noisy attack gets caught while a quiet one strolls right in.
Here is the whole family tree, and the differences are impossible to confuse once you see the shape. It splits first by where the attacker guesses, then by how they choose what to guess. Start on the offline side, where the attacker already holds the stolen hash file and has unlimited tries on their own hardware. Branch 1 is the dictionary attack, and it is the workhorse. It does not try random gibberish. It tries a list of passwords humans genuinely use, harvested from past breaches. And that is precisely why it works. People reuse the same few thousand patterns. So a good word list of real leaked passwords cracks the majority of an average user base before it ever gets creative. On a typical corporate dump, a plain dictionary run recovers a third to half of the accounts in the first few minutes. No skill required.
Branch 2, brute force, the blunt instrument. It tries every possible combination in order, on and on, never stopping. Guaranteed to find the answer eventually, but eventually can mean longer than the age of the universe for a genuinely strong password. So here is the nuance most people fumble. Brute force is complete but ruinously expensive. The dictionary is cheap but limited. Real attackers run the dictionary first, then bolt on rules to mangle each word, and only fall back to pure brute force as a last resort.
Branch 3, the rainbow table, and this is the one to file carefully because the exam adores it. It is not live guessing at all. Someone pre-computed the hashes for billions of passwords ahead of time, so cracking collapses into a fast lookup instead of fresh computation. And here is the move I want you to see coming. Salt is the single thing that renders a rainbow table worthless, because a pre-computed table no longer matches the salted hashes. Hold that thought, it pays off 2 scenes from now when we watch it happen.
Now cross to the online branch and meet spraying, the clever one and the most tested. Brute force hammers one account with many passwords and trips lockout almost instantly. Spraying inverts it completely. One common password, tried once across many accounts.
Which is exactly why spraying slips past defenses. Each account sees only a single failed attempt, so the lockout counter never fires. And note the split the exam loves. Online, the login page fights back with lockout. Offline, with the stolen hashes, the attacker has all day and lockout does nothing.
And the attacker chooses that one password with care. It is usually the season and the year, or the company name and an exclamation point. In an organization of 10,000 people, you do not need a clever guess. You just need the one boring guess that a few dozen of them definitely chose.
So what stops it? Not a simple lockout counter, because spraying never trips one account enough. You need detection that watches across accounts, one failed login for the same password against 50 users in 2 minutes, plus multi-factor so a guessed password on its own is not enough.
There is a clarifier the panel keeps getting in the comments, and it is worth pausing on before we touch a terminal. Fenrir, you have had a hand up. Put it to us plainly.
Happy to. Here is the question students keep mixing up. What is the real difference between password spraying and a brute force attack? Because on a fast read, they sound like the same thing.
Short version. Brute force is many passwords on one account, and loud, so it trips lockout fast. Spraying is one password across many accounts, and quiet, so it slides under lockout. Same goal, opposite signature. That signature is the answer they want.
Lock those 4 shapes in because the rest of the episode is just watching them play out and then defeating them. There is also a 5th cousin called credential stuffing. We save that one for the very end, once you have felt exactly why password reuse is so dangerous.
One thing before the next part, and then we move right on. If any of this is clicking, tap that like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell for the next one. It takes a second, it costs nothing, and it helps more than you would think.
Theory is where most courses stop. We are going to do the thing they only describe. Everything from here runs in an isolated lab against hashes we generated ourselves, purely to understand how to defend a real one. Nothing here touches a system we do not own. Let me set the scene. We have a small file called hashes.txt, holding a handful of message digest 5 hashes, the same flavor that hospitals stored. And we have the famous RockU word list, roughly 14 million real passwords that leaked from a social game site back in 2009. That single file is now the standard opening move in cracking, because it captures how ordinary people actually choose passwords.
And to be fair to Message Digest 5, it was never evil. It is a perfectly good fast checksum for confirming a downloaded file arrived unchanged. The crime is using a fast checksum to guard secrets, and that one category error is what the exam keeps testing in different costumes.
First, let me show you what a stolen hash file even looks like, because it is less dramatic than people picture. 3 message digest 5 hashes, sitting in a plain text file. Just 32 hex characters each, no password in sight.
Now the mode, which is the first thing that matters. The -M flag tells Hashcat what kind of hash it is staring at, and -M0 means message digest 5. We point it at the file, add -0 for a straight dictionary attack, and hand it RockU. One line, and the guessing begins.
Watch the status block, because that is where the damage shows up. The recovered line counts how many hashes have already fallen. The speed line shows the raw guess rate. Keep an eye on both numbers because together they tell the entire story.
3 out of 3, and the speed line says nearly 10 billion guesses every second on one card. Now the reveal. The --show flag reads back the plain text for every hash we already cracked, straight out of the pot file.
And show reads back every cracked plain text instantly. There it is in plain sight. Password 123456 and QWERTY, sitting right beside their hashes. That is the hospital, its entire staff list, gone in the time it takes to read this sentence.
And one flag worth catching for the exam. That -0 meant a straight dictionary. Bump it to attack mode 3 and Hashcat switches to a pure brute force mask, generating every combination itself instead of reading a list. This mask says try every combination of the lowercase alphabet, digits, and symbols.
In the real world, an attacker layers rules on top of the dictionary too, automatically turning each word into its predictable variations. So password becomes capital P, @ for the A, 0 for the O, and a couple of digits on the end. The mangled versions of common words fall almost as fast as the words themselves.
Let me press on what we just watched, because that speed number is the whole plot. Nearly 10 billion candidates a second means RockU's 14 million words are exhausted in a heartbeat. There was no battle here. It was a lookup at machine speed.
And this is what that speed is actually made of. That was one graphics card. A serious cracking rig is a frame of 8 of them, wired together and running hot, or a cloud of them rented by the hour. That speed is the floor of what a motivated attacker can throw at a stolen hash file, not the ceiling. When you design a defense, assume they are faster than our little demo, not slower.
And notice what did not happen, because this is the strategic point. Nobody broke Message Digest 5. The algorithm computed every hash correctly, exactly as designed. The failure was choosing a fast, unsalted hash to guard passwords in the first place.
Which is exactly the distinction the exam tests again and again in slightly different wording. The hash was not defeated. A human chose a fast, unsalted hash to protect secrets, and that human error is the answer they want you to spot. Remember this one thing from the demo: the algorithm was never the problem.
So a password store does not want a fast hash. It wants a deliberately slow one, and it wants a salt on every entry. That single sentence answers a huge fraction of the password questions on this exam, so let it settle. Stay with us, because that is exactly the door we close 2 scenes from now, on this very machine.
We just proved how fast a bad choice falls. Now the fight teams actually have when they write the policy, because when you finally sit down to author it, you get roughly one hard rule you can enforce without a revolt. Do you spend it on a long passphrase, on slow salted hashing under the hood, or on multi-factor on top? There is real money and real help desk pain riding on where that one rule goes. Grace has been making the case that a long passphrase is most of the battle and the cheapest to ship. Fenrir keeps insisting that without slow salted hashing and a second factor, a fast phrase is a comforting illusion. I am going to stay in the middle and referee, then bring the standard in to settle it. Grace, open.
Length is the highest leverage move a user can make, and I will defend it. Everything we cracked was short and common. Push people to a 4-word passphrase, and you blow the search space up by an exponent the attacker cannot automate around. It is memorable, so it kills the sticky note, and it beats any 8-character complex string on raw guessing space. Spend the one rule on length.
Hold on. Length is a promise about the user, not the server.
It is a promise the data says users mostly keep, once you give them a passphrase instead of a rule. Make your case.
Gladly, users break promises, and I plan for that. If the site stored that gorgeous passphrase as unsalted message digest 5, we just watched what happens. And if the user picks a famous movie quote, the attacker's phrase list already contains the whole thing. Length with no slow hashing underneath is a longer false sense of security.
Hold there, Fenrir. Before you swing to hashing, answer her point directly. Most breaches are the user's weak choice, not exotic cryptography. Is length not the single biggest bang for the buck?
It is the biggest bang the user controls, and I will grant that fully. But I do not get to control the user. I control the server. Slow salted hashing is the one defense that still works after the user has already made every mistake and after the whole database has already walked out the door. That is why I would spend the scarce rule where I have actual power.
Then let me sharpen the disagreement instead of splitting it. Hashing protects the leaked file. Length protects the account that is never leaked and gets sprayed online, where the server never even sees a hash. You are defending the offline case. I am defending the online case. We are guarding different doors.
That is a fair carve-up, and it is the most honest thing said so far. But notice it means neither of us alone is a complete answer. And it points straight at the word neither of us has said yet.
Good, because that is the tiebreaker and it belongs on the table. Say it, Fenrir.
Multi-factor. Every single attack we demonstrated today ends the same way, with a stolen but valid password. A second factor the attacker does not physically hold makes that stolen password worthless. It is the one control that survives even when the password rule itself has completely failed.
And I concede it cleanly because it is true and it is strategic. If I only get one control, multi-factor outranks any password rule because it assumes the password is already lost and protects you anyway. I still want a sane passphrase underneath it, but multi-factor is the floor the whole thing stands on, not the decoration on top.
So here is where it lands, and it is not a coin flip. The current NIST guidance, Special Publication 863B, is explicit. It tells verifiers to stop forcing composition rules, to stop expiring passwords on a schedule, to allow long passphrases up to at least 64 characters, and to screen every new password against a breach block list. And the same body of guidance treats multi-factor as the highest leverage control there is. So here's the verdict, straight from the standard and not our opinion. My recommendation is favor length plus a breach block list over complexity theater, store it salted and slow, and put multi-factor on top of whatever you choose. All 3 doors in that priority is the answer the exam rewards.
Which means the honest answer to a policy question is almost never one control by itself. It is a long passphrase, hashed slow and salted, sitting behind a second factor. Pick the one the scenario is begging for, but never bet the whole defense on a single wall.
So fix it. We just watched Message Digest 5 collapse. Run the identical attack against a properly defended hash and prove to me the wall actually holds, or admit it is just a slogan on a slide.
Gladly. We swapped the target to bcrypt, which does two things Message Digest 5 did not. Every hash carries its own random salt baked right in, and the algorithm is engineered to be slow on purpose.
Salt is just a unique random value mixed into each password before it is hashed. Two users who both pick password get totally different stored hashes, so one pre-computed table can never match more than a single account. That is the rainbow table callback I planted 2 scenes ago, arriving right on schedule.
Quick check, because students trip on this constantly. The salt is stored right next to the hash, in plain view. So if the attacker can just read it, how on earth does it help?
Great catch, and it is the most common misconception on this whole topic. The salt is not a secret, and it does not need to be. Its only job is to be unique per user, so the attacker cannot reuse one pre-computed table or one cracked result across everybody. They must start over for each account, which quietly destroys their economy of scale.
So before Salt, cracking one common password instantly unlocked every account that shared it. After Salt, each one is a separate fight. That alone is the difference between a whole company falling at once and falling one slow account at a time.
Now look at the bcrypt hash itself, because it wears its defenses openly. This is one stored bcrypt entry. It advertises its version, its cost factor, and its salt, all in one string.
Now run the same Hashcat command, just mode 3200 for bcrypt instead of 0. Same word list, same machine, same everything. Let us see the speed line and settle this.
Stop and feel that gap. Message Digest 5 ran at nearly 10 billion guesses a second. Hashcat cost 12 runs at 184. Not billion, not million, 184 guesses a second on the identical hardware.
So the wall is real. I came in ready to call it a slogan, and the speed line answered me. I conceded, fully.
Here is that gap so nobody forgets it, because a number this size stops feeling real. This is the guess rate on the same rig in billions per second, Message Digest 5 against bcrypt, side by side. The bcrypt bar is not even a sliver next to Message Digest 5. It is invisible at this scale. That gap is roughly 50 million times slower, entirely by design. And here is the part that ages beautifully. Crank the cost factor higher as hardware improves, and the wall simply rises to match.
And one number to carry into the exam. That cost factor of 12 is an exponent. Cost 12 means 2 to the 12th power, which is 4,096 rounds per guess. Add 1 to the cost and you double the work. So cost 13 is twice as slow as 12, and 14 is 4 times as slow.
Which is the elegant part. The defender pays that cost once for a fraction of a second at login and never notices. The attacker pays it on all billions of guesses. The same slowness you can barely feel is what buries them.
And bcrypt is not the only name you should recognize on site. The exam may show you PBKDF2, scrypt, or Argon2. They are all the same idea, deliberately slow salted key-derivation functions purpose-built for passwords. Argon2 ID is the modern first choice. It also resists an attacker who throws a lot of memory at the problem, not just raw speed.
So the wrong answer on a storage question is always the bare fast hash. Message Digest 5. SHA1, even plain SHA256 on its own. The right answer is one of those slow purpose-built functions, salted. Get that reflex and the storage questions answer themselves.
The panel voted for length, so let me show you the math sitting under that vote. Once you see it, you will never argue complexity again. Here is the idea the exam keeps circling. Each character you add does not just add to the attacker's work, it multiplies it. Picture the same lowercase attacker grinding away on our rig from the demo. We hold everything fixed, same hardware, same speed. The only thing that changes is how many characters are in the password. Watch what each extra character does to the time it takes to break. 6 lowercase characters, call it instant. 8, and you are into hours. 10 gets you weeks. 12 leaves that same attacker staring at centuries. The bar does not creep, it explodes, because every new character multiplies the whole space by 26.
And that is the entire case for length in one picture. A symbol adds one rule the attacker already automates in a heartbeat. 4 more characters add an exponent the attacker cannot automate around because there is no shortcut through a bigger search space. The exam phrasing is that length contributes more to strength than complexity, and now you can see exactly why instead of memorizing it.
Now, the other half of Objective 2.4 that people skip and then lose points on. The cryptographic attacks against the hash itself, collision, birthday, and downgrade.
Start with collision, because the other two hang off it. A collision is simply 2 different inputs that produce the exact same hash output. For a strong hash that should be astronomically rare, effectively never in the life of the universe.
But here is the unsettling part. The birthday attack. In a room of just 23 people, 2 of them probably share a birthday far sooner than intuition swears. Collisions follow the very same math. They arrive at roughly the square root of the space, not the full space.
And that square root is why bit length matters for hashes too. A so-called 128-bit hash only gives you about 64 bits of collision resistance, because the birthday math effectively halves it. That is why you hear SHA-256, and never SHA-128.
So name the casualties, do not be vague. Which real algorithms are actually broken this way? The names a question might slip in as a wrong answer to catch you.
Message Digest 5 and SHA-1. Name them and remember them. Both are collision broken in practice, not just in theory. In 2017, Google produced 2 different PDF files with an identical SHA-1 digest. The demonstration they named Shattered.
And it has drawn real blood. Years back, the Flame malware used a Message Digest 5 collision to forge a Microsoft code signing certificate. It looked like legitimately signed software the whole time. That is collision as a live weapon, not a chalkboard curiosity. Downgrade is the last one, and it is the sneaky one. Instead of breaking strong cryptography, the attacker forces both sides to fall back to a week-old version they still support, then attacks that. The Poodle attack in 2014 forced browsers down to the ancient Secure Sockets layer version 3, then broke it. The fix was ripping the old protocol out entirely.
Now let me make the offline threat physical for a second, because it is easy to picture a laptop and underestimate this. When we say a serious attacker, this is the actual hardware behind that number we watched. That is a rack of graphics cards on an open frame, wired together and running hot, doing nothing but hashing guesses day and night. 8 cards like this, and you multiply that 10 billion a second by 8. This is what your salted slow hash is buying you time against, and why 50 million times slower actually matters.
And none of that is exotic gear. Those are consumer graphics cards you can buy off a shelf. The attacker's edge is patience and electricity, not magic.
Exactly, and here is the reassuring flip side. Brute force sounds like a supercomputer, but underneath it is almost embarrassingly simple. Let me show you the whole engine in 10 lines of Python, so it stops being mysterious. It walks a word list, hashes each guess, compares to the target and stops when it matches. That is the entire idea. Hashcat is just this loop made brutally fast in hardware.
And every defense we covered attacks one line of that loop. A long password makes the word list miss. Salt makes the precompute miss. A slow function makes each turn of the loop expensive. 3 controls, 3 different parts of one simple loop.
Now let me make it personal, because the exam loves the defender's side, and so should you. The single fastest thing any viewer can do tonight is find out whether their own passwords are already sitting in one of these breach dumps. There is a free, genuinely trusted site for exactly that.
Have I been pwned? You go to the site, drop in your email address, and click check. It tells you every known breach your address turned up in, and it does it privately using a clever trick called key anonymity, so your actual password never leaves your browser in the clear. It is run by a respected security researcher, not a harvesting site, and it is safe to use. If your account shows up, treat that password as public, because it effectively is. It is sitting in the same wordless Hashcat loads, which means the live crack you just watched would find it instantly. Change it everywhere you reused it, and let a manager generate something unique going forward. This is the rare exam concept you can act on for your own safety the moment this video ends.
Understand that loop, and every password question on this exam becomes obvious instead of memorized. You are not recalling a fact, you are reasoning from how the attack actually works. One scene left, and it is the attack that turns all of this into somebody else's problem.
There is one attack left, and it is the one that turns every breach we covered into somebody else's emergency. Credential stuffing. Knowing how to break in is only half of Objective 2.4. The half that actually pays your salary is knowing how to stop it.
Right, so let us spend the last scene on the defending side. Credential stuffing is the quiet epidemic behind most of the account takeovers you read about, and it is the direct payoff of every leaked password list we discussed. The breach happens at one careless company, and the bill arrives at a completely different one. That is what makes it so maddening to defend.
Credential stuffing is replaying real username and password pairs from one breach against a completely different site, betting that people reuse them. It is not guessing at all. It is replaying known good answers from one door against every other door, at scale, with automation. There is nothing to crack, because the password is already correct somewhere. Picture Marcus, a 30-year-old who used the same password on a hobby forum and on his personal email. The forum gets breached, his pair leaks, and within days an attacker tries that exact pair on his email and his bank. One reused password quietly turned one breach into 10.
A viewer asked how big this actually is out in the wild, so we called someone who knows account takeover defense inside out. Priya, can you hear us? How large is credential stuffing in the real world?
I can hear you, and it is enormous. On large consumer sites, a huge share of the login attempts are not real users at all. They are automated tools replaying stolen credential lists, hoping for reuse.
So it barely even looks like an attack to the defender because the passwords are real. The login succeeds, the logs look normal, and nothing trips an alarm. It is a break-in with a valid key.
Exactly, and that is what makes it so hard to spot. The attacker is using correct passwords just on the wrong site, so there is nothing to crack and nothing weak to detect. The only durable fixes are stopping the reuse and adding a second factor.
One quick follow-up while we have you, because viewers always ask it. Does multi-factor fully close the door, or do attackers get around that too? Give it to us straight, no marketing.
It closes most of it, so absolutely turn it on. But be honest about the edges. Attackers now spam approval prompts hoping a tired user just taps yes.
So it is not a finish line. What actually holds up when the user gets prompt fatigued?
Number matching and phishing-resistant keys. Those raise the bar again. Thanks for having me on, and the one thing I would leave your viewers with is simple. Stop reusing passwords and add a second factor.
That is a fair, honest answer, and it lines up exactly with where we were heading. Thanks, Priya. We will let you get back to it.
So let me ask the obvious follow-up, because I do not want us selling a fantasy. We tell everyone to make a long, unique password for every site they use. No human can remember 100 of those. Is that advice not just setting people up to fail?
It would be without the right tool, and that is exactly what a password manager solves. It generates a long, random, unique password for every site and remembers them all behind one strong master secret, so reuse simply stops being a temptation. That is the mint green answer on the exam.
Fair, but you have not addressed my real worry. Now every password lives in one vault. Is that not just building one bigger target and painting a bullseye on it?
It is, and I will not pretend otherwise. A manager genuinely concentrates risk. That master password and the vault become a single high-value target, so it has to be protected with its own strong, unique secret, and with multi-factor on top of it. That is the real cost, stated plainly.
So the answer is not avoid the vault. It is guard the vault properly. That is the honest, layered way to think about it. Weigh the actual trade-off for us out loud and land it.
Right. The genuine alternative is reusing weak passwords everywhere, which we just watched fall in seconds, and which fuels the exact stuffing Priya described. A single well-guarded vault is dramatically safer than that spread-out weakness, so the honest verdict is, use a manager and protect it hard. The concentration risk is real, and it still wins for almost everyone.
And that instinct is right for the exam too. CompTIA rarely rewards a silver bullet. It rewards the answer that layers controls and names the trade-off honestly, which is precisely what Erica just did.
And here is a distinction the exam quietly loves, so let me nail it down. There is online cracking and offline cracking. Offline is the Hashcat run we did, where the attacker holds the hash file and gets unlimited tries on their own hardware. Nothing you do at the login page touches them. Online is hammering a live login page, where the system gets to fight back. That is where account lockout and rate limiting earn their keep, starving Liv guessing of the speed it needs. They do nothing for an offline run on stolen hashes. But against someone pounding a login form in real time, they are decisive. The exam wants you to know which defense fits which situation, so never mix them up.
And come back to Marcus one last time, because he makes the whole hour concrete. If he had used a manager, the forum breach never touches his email, because that password is unique and worthless anywhere else. If his email had multi-factor, the stolen pair fails anyway because the attacker is missing the second factor. 2 cheap layers, and the entire chain that ruined his month simply breaks.
Put it all together and you get the real answer the exam rewards. No single control wins. Long, unique passwords, salted slow hashing, multi-factor, and lockout each break a different part of the attack. Layer them and you get defense in depth. If you remember one thing from this whole hour, remember that the attack is a loop, and every real defense just sabotages a different part of it. The whole hour in one breath. Attackers crack the stored hash, never the password you typed. A fast, unsalted hash falls in seconds, but salt plus a slow function turns that same crack into centuries.
The number I keep coming back to is 184. The same rig that made nearly 10 billion guesses a second crawled to 184 the instant we salted and slowed the hash. That single gap is the entire defense.
And the first thing you should do tonight is open Have I Been Pwned and check the one account you would hate to lose. If it turns up, change that password and stop reusing it.
Wait until you see the next one, because we make a shell pop. One short line on a lab victim, and a live command prompt jumps back into the attacker's hands.
If that live crack finally made this objective click, hit like and subscribe so this series keeps building to your exam pass. The free practice quizzes for this objective are waiting at certs.professorerica.com.
Before you go, one we honestly could not settle. For your single most important account, is a long, memorable passphrase actually safer than a random string from a manager? Make your case in the comments.
One last thing before we sign off. If you are getting real value from these, a like and a subscribe is the best way to support the work. That is exactly what grows the series and keeps these episodes coming. Every move creates a new board. Read it before you move again.
Rating you an 8.7, Grace. Held back a hair because you made it look easy. This is Professor Erica. Thanks for watching and signing off.